Hey y'all, welcome to the Neat Disciples. My name is Philip, this is Jeremy. We are joining you for episode 2. Neat Disciples is a show that focuses on scripture, bourbon, cigars, barbecue, cooking, and everything else men like to talk about. So thanks for joining us. Like the word neat's used to describe an undiluted drink. We like to keep our discussions undiluted as best as possible. Yep. So hope you enjoy it. I do want to lead off with, hey, if you got an alcohol problem, a problem with alcoholism, this is probably not the show for you when we get to drinking alcohol. So if you do need help, please reach out and get it. And you can also reach out to us for any kind of assistance. So, yeah, well, I think episode 1 went really well. Had a really good conversation. So for this one, I was just kind of thinking over the last couple of weeks that, society these days, it just seems like our culture makes it bad to be a man, to be a manly man, right?
Yeah.
And then you hear words like
just to be a man. I mean, I think yes, both.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you're a man and you do things that men do, whatever that, hunting, fishing, sports, being strong and being a leader. You just hear the word toxic masculinity thrown around, and I do believe there's a place for that definition.
Sure.
But in our normal society, it just seems like that they just want men to be weak
and stupid. I mean, to be honest with you, you look in pop culture, you look on TV, or maybe even some movies, and typically the guys are portrayed as just dumb jocks or unable to use common sense and function around the house or whatnot. So it's a common portrayal at the moment. So it's probably a timely conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see it all the time, and for men, and not even for men, for my son to see that growing up, like, is this what men are supposed to act like?
Right.
And I try to do my best to give him a good, godly example of what a man should be. Now, I screw up a lot.
We all do.
And I know your son's grown, but I know you've probably made a couple of missteps.
Oh, of course, yeah. But had the same mentality, and that I felt it was my job as his father to demonstrate to him what a man ought to be and do and think and say in certain situations. And to your point, we don't always nail it. But at least like you, I was thinking, this is my responsibility. I think part of the problem that maybe some of the issue that we deal with now is that maybe we look to other things or other places to provide that leadership to our children, or other people's children or whatnot. And so when we abdicate our responsibility as fathers, as husbands, we're opening the door for problems down the road.
Yeah, we're letting the world raise our kids, and that is a problem. So, so I definitely, as I was kind of thinking about scripture and everything this past couple of days, of like, hey, what does the Bible say about men and how men should be, and a man being strong? So I found a few, and what really gave me pause, kind of as I was putting this together was, in Matthew, Jesus, says, hey, if you get hit on one cheek, turn the other cheek for him, or if somebody sues you or takes a shirt, give them another shirt, or they ask you to carry something, carry it twice that amount.
Extra mile,
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just finishing your sentence.
No, absolutely, yeah. So, it would lead people to think, they're like, okay, well, Jesus is saying we don't need to be strong, but I mean, I disagree with that statement, because I think in that Jesus is wanting us to not be vengeful. Right. So if somebody, does something to me, I don't want to be vengeful. I want to act out of love. He's not saying, hey, if somebody is attacking you, don't fight back. Right. Or, hey, don't be strong and stand up for your faith and stand up for who you are and stand up for the right thing. It's just, don't be vengeful.
Yeah. And that verse comes out of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5-7. And in that sermon, Jesus is really contrasting the righteousness of the Pharisees, who loved the law, in word, at least, maybe not in deed, but in word, with this kingdom ethic that now Jesus was coming to and teaching and exemplifying as he ushers in his kingdom. And this is what his kingdom in life looks like in his kingdom. he was saying that just because the law gives you the right to retaliate if someone slaps you doesn't mean you necessarily have to. Um, there might be situations where you need to, but just because the law says you can doesn't mean you have to.
Right.
Do things out of love, as he would go on to say, and emulate. I mean, Jesus was in no way, shape, or form a pacifist.
Right.
We're able to get angry and even lash out in our anger, in righteous anger. Paul would say, in your anger, do not sin. So, we have to exercise wisdom and discernment in anger, and in when we're determining whether or not just the law, we have the freedom to retaliate or to escalate or continue on a conflict. What Jesus is saying, you don't always have to.
Right.
And probably more often than not, you don't need to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's just going to lead to more problems.
Yeah, that's right.
In most situations.
You're going to be throwing fuel on the fire, and you don't need to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to share a few scriptures that I kind of ran across over the last few days. The first one's I got two out of the Old Testament, two out of the New Testament, right? Because people kind of get, well, and the Old Testament says this, but the New Testament says this. Well, a lot of this lines up.
Sure, of course,
especially around this topic. So Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Now, this is God speaking to the Israelites concerning the law that Moses gave to them. He's like strictly telling them, "Hey, y'all need to be strong. Don't be afraid."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times now fear drives a lot of people's emotions, and emotions can be bad in those situations. And again, back to what Jesus said, like, control that.
Yeah. What is it? 365 references in Scripture, I think, both in the Old and New combined, where we're told to fear not, because the Lord is with us.
Yep.
Yeah, fear not. So I think the number is 365, one for every day of the year, type of a thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
All
so
right.
that's
there you go. It's freebie.
I'm about to take a note of that.
Mhm,
Yeah. Deuteronomy 31:6. Now this is Moses speaking to the Israelites prior to them crossing the Jordan. That's when, after God told Moses, "Hey, you're not going to be able to cross." So Moses is telling the Israelites, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid and terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor forsake you." Again, that's 2 of 365.
Yeah, there you go. And when you believe to your core that God is with you, you can be, maybe, I don't want to say this, not that you can be courageous, but I think more like courage just comes, I think, naturally at that point. I think of, this is not on your list, but I think of David before Goliath, right? Where all the Israelites were kind of just shaking before him. He's a giant and he's boasting these things, who's going to go fight him. And little David said, "Look, this is not our fight. This is God's fight. He's fighting with God here. This is our God's fight." And so he went out in that courage, understanding this, God's with us. So let's go. Yeah. We lose sight of that, I think.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you, as you're talking through that, I'm thinking, man, there's all these references, and I'm thinking about all these battles where God said, "Hey, yeah, I know you're outnumbered, but I'm with you."
Right.
And as long as he's with you, then there's nothing to fear.
But we worry more about what the world will think about us if we do something or say something. If we're worried about the whole, this toxic masculinity idea could be used against us, maybe we don't think that certain aspect is a toxic masculinity, but everyone out there thinks it, so we're not going to act or say what the truth or protect somebody, or what, whether it's physical or verbal or whatever, however we might protect somebody, because we're worried about the fallout.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jesus was real clear too. Like you need to do what's right.
Yeah.
If it's standing up,
that's right.
You need to stand up. That's doing the right thing.
That's right.
It's just
100%
doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And keeping, again, like I fall back on emotion, keeping those emotions in check. Right.
Yeah.
So out of the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 16:13, and this is Paul. Yeah. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous. And in Greek, that means be a man. Like in some of the translations, the Greek translations.
Yeah, he's actually saying act like a man.
Act like a man. But he goes on to say or be strong. He finishes that verse with be strong, but he goes on to the next verse saying do everything in love,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, that's back reflected on what Jesus said. So I mean, even Paul's telling us, telling the Corinthians at this time, hey, be a man, like be courageous, like that's what men do.
Yeah, and with that secondary verse finishing the thought, do it all in love, um, doesn't mean then that being a man and doing things out of love is a weakness.
Right.
I mean, there's just even doing it out of love, which is the way we should do it, is a strength in the kingdom. So again, this is where the kingdom that Jesus ushered in is totally different than the world outside the kingdom. And we've if you grow up outside the kingdom, as we did at one point, right, to do things out of love may have a negative or a weak connotation
Mm-hmm.
to it, but in the kingdom, very different connotation.
Yeah, and two, like that gets me thinking about, we're talking about kids and raising our kids. I struggled, before having kids that where the Bible talks about, hey, when you punish your kids, punish them out of love. And that was hard. Like, how do you punish your kid? And like, hey, I still love you, but as an adult and as a parent, like once it came time to that, it's just understanding that, hey, I have to do these things because I love them. Like I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna say the right things because I love this person and I want them to do the right thing. Not even just my kid, just like anybody
Yeah.
that may have a problem with me. They're still God's people, right? So we do want to love them through that.
And doing that is very much acting like a man.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, and that's where that we get back to the term toxic masculinity, where like, oh, well, you can't do these things. If you do, you're weak, right? But God's word says that, hey, no, this is actually makes you strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we sometimes, again, I might be going off the rails here for what you wanted to get into, but we are called to be meek. The beginning of the Sermon on the
Mm-hmm.
Mount, Jesus says in the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the meek." So meek is like restrained power.
Mm-hmm.
I always pictured like a wild Mustang or something. Has a lot of power, but when you can kind of tame it a little bit and control its power, it's meek. And so there's strength in meekness, and the meek understand when to turn the other cheek and when to carry it on to the next step, if so to you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
so all right. Because maybe we just have confused definitions,
Uh,
between meek and weak. They sound alike, but they
they
don't mean the
do,
same thing.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
but I love the analogy though, right? You've got an animal with all this force and power that that won't use it until it absolutely has to. And that's with a lot of things you kind of
Sure.
get through thinking with,
Yeah.
with people, with animals. They are timid. Even like think about like a snake, right? A snake's not going to come after you and bite you most of the time.
Right.
It's just going to defend itself, right? Even though it can, it won't.
Right.
So yeah, that was a good analogy.
Thank
I
you.
like it. So kind of wrap it up with Matthew 5:14 through 16. These are some of my favorite verses in the Bible. Uh, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I mean, go back to the song we learned as kids, "This Little Light of Mine," and I think I know God doesn't want us to focus on good deeds, but just in how we carry ourselves and how we react to people, how we talk to people, minister to people, all that is a reflection on Him, right?
Yeah. I, I will correct something you just said,
Okay,
because he does want us to focus on good deeds. Now, good deeds don't save us. That's probably what you meant.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good deeds is not what saves us and gets us into the kingdom. That's through the cross, through faith in
Mm-hmm.
Jesus and receiving him as Savior. But then the gospel produces these good works in us. And so this being this little light of, well, that's not what the verse, I just conflated the verse with the song, but now being the light, being the salt of the earth, being his witnesses out in the earth, like he says in Acts, that is now all produced in us. And so the way I've said it oftentimes is he's called us out of the world, produced in us these good deeds, and then sends us back out into the world then to let these good deeds be seen. Hopefully that will draw people to him, and then they go through the same process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
acting like, and I think to your point, this is what it looks like in part. I mean, there's other verses that describe it differently, but in part, this is what it looks like to act like a man, to be a strong man out there in the world,
Yep.
right? Be the light, be the salt. Don't put a bowl over your light, like let it shine. Let it be seen.
Yeah, and I think kind of what we let off in the society is wanting to dampen that, for whatever reason, whether it be political or just to control the narrative or just to have control over people or to make everybody feel good. I know we get to it, and again, I don't want to go off the rails too far on this, but watered down Christianity, where it's like, hey, I know it says that, but this makes me feel good, so I'm gonna, I want to do this and everything, right? And I think that all kind of leads to that, right? So if we stand on what God's saying here about, where do we fall in the progression of everything? We fall under God and Jesus, and then the man, and then the family, and everything. And I think it's really important for men to understand their roles.
Totally. Yeah. And stand for the truth, because
Mhm.
people are looking to us to do that. Our families, our children, our wives to a degree. Just as we look to them for what their roles in the kingdom. So we all have different roles.
Mhm.
We see that in Genesis, where it says that he made them male and female. And then even the curses kind of highlight the different roles. It says, hey, and the curses, because they fell, Adam and Eve fell, and Adam is told, okay, the ground now is going to produce thorns and thistles and weeds. So tilling the ground and working the land is going to be a painful experience for you. And Eve, childbirth is now going to hurt. And so that's not their only responsibilities in the kingdom, of course. But I think that was what God was saying. Like your primary role that is different in the male and female. You're going to work your tail off. You get to produce children, but they're both now going to be uncomfortable and hurt.
Yep.
My point being that we do need to understand these roles, because God did design male and female differently. There are different roles for us in the kingdom, and if we mix those up, then we find ourselves in the world in which we live. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why we need bourbon.
Well, it doesn't hurt it, for sure.
Right.
But yeah, hope you got something out of that. And if you have any comments,
Be gentle.
yeah, be gentle. Send us a message on
Yeah.
Messenger, on Facebook, or a comment on the video on YouTube. But we'd love to hear from you, and how, especially if you're a man that's struggling with this, kind of hear where you're at in your walk and everything. So yeah, great discussion on that. So over the last couple of weeks, I was kind of kicking back and forth on what I wanted to try, something that I haven't tried, and we were talking about last time you making a specific drink that calls for a rye. So we were thinking, hey, what better thing to try except a rye, right? So
makes sense.
Jeremy brought two ryes, a Michner single barrel straight rye, and a Rittenhouse rye. It's Bottle and Bond 100 proof. I've not had either one. I think I've had the Rittenhouse in a drink.
Same.
But I've not had it neat. We're gonna try it neat. And the Migners, I'm really excited about that. I like ryes.
I like Michter's.
Yeah, I like high ryes and ryes, so I'm excited to try that.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to say on these?
Not really. I mean, I went to the Rittenhouses because in other podcasts and blogs that I paid attention to, even when I started even in the process of getting into bourbon, whiskeys, and drinks and so on and so forth. A lot of people said this is a really good rye to have on hand to make, rye-based drinks as a mixer, and it's really affordable. And this one, I said, like I just said, I really like Michter's, so I've been wanting to try this anyway. So this is a great excuse.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, let's try the Migners first, since it's a lower proof. Because I know if we try this higher proof, it'll.
Yeah, I think this is what I got my glasses on. So 80.
84. No,
85. I think. So it is.
Oh man,
I can't read it.
I'm getting blind.
I'll put my glasses on.
Yeah, it's 84.8 proof, so almost 85.
Okay.
So it's a lower proof.
Love that sound. Yeah.
We're gonna try two, so go a little light on them.
Well, I don't have to finish it on camera.
All right. Well, that's nice and pretty. It's kind of a lighter color.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah. It's yeah, much lighter than what we tried last time.
Oh yeah, good leg. Smells good.
Does smell good.
Definitely smells like a rye.
Smells like Michter's. Yeah,
That's good.
it is good.
It's light.
It is light. It's sweet.
It's crisp.
Mm-hmm. Not even like a real strong burn.
No, not at all.
I mean, the burn's there, but it's not strong.
Very nice.
Which,
and
of course,
easy.
is 85 proof. So that's why.
Definitely.
But even that would be good in a drink,
Yes, it would.
as we're about to find out. Maybe.
Yes, maybe. I think we're gonna go with the Rittenhouse.
Yes.
All right, so let's set this to the side,
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna try the Rittenhouse. Fresh glass.
Which this one is bottle and bond, so as we know, it's going to be a higher proof than the 85. Screw top.
Screw top.
Yeah, didn't look like a screw top, did it? Look at that, they fake you.
That they do. It
Yeah.
looks like a cork on the
It
top.
sure
of that
did,
thing.
yeah. That looks even lighter.
It does look
Doesn't it?
lighter.
Yeah.
Oh wow, let me just set that
Yeah.
back up there real quick. That does look a little bit lighter.
Yep.
Interesting. Not by much, but just a little bit, just enough. Yeah, that one smells a little bit more ethanol on that.
Think so?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't smell as sweet.
Oh wow, it's really smooth. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect.
That is smooth.
After smelling, I was thinking it to be a little bit more burn with that thing, but
yeah,
it's actually really good. And you said that was like a $30-some bottle.
This one, because this one normally it's I think it's even sub 30. But I got the private single barrel, so this one was a little bit more.
Okay.
So this was like 38, I think. So even that wasn't that expensive.
Yeah, that's good. I'd drink that for sure. Yeah, I like it. Good choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Two really good.
Well done, all you other bloggers and podcasts out there.
Thanks for the
all I did was listen to your advice, and you hooked us up and did us right.
Steered us in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, like I mentioned, we had talked last time. We made an old fashioned, episode 1, kind of like the father of the bourbon cocktails, and you mentioned the Catcher in the Rye, which I've been excited about. So I think out of these two, let's do the Rittenhouse, since they said it was a good mixer.
Yeah, sure.
Plus, it's a little bit higher proof, so
yeah,
I'm gonna let Jeremy mix it up.
All right, so I'm gonna make these. Make them up here so people can see, I assume, right? All right, this is a little more involved than making an old fashioned, so bear with me. Probably should have done this beforehand. Got to pull the stems off these cherries. Have a bowl or something, or a napkin over.
Get a napkin here.
Yeah. There we go. Just got to pull this. Whoops. All right, just got to pull the stems off these cherries. So I'll show you the kind of cherries I'm using here in a second. These are not like those maraschino cherries. I love those cherries, but I don't use them for this purpose. Those are too expensive, and their density is a little bit different. These I discovered. I have a good friend is a bartender up in a former bartender up in a restaurant in Florence, Oregon, and I had a drink there, and these cherries were included. I said, "Tell me about these cherries," and she said, "They're these Bordeaux cherries." And so I'll just put these up here so people can see Bordeaux cherries. I order them on Amazon. You're about to find out they're really good.
Oh, can't wait.
All right, so I muddle these cherries just a little bit. Just gonna squish them up a little bit, get the juices and the pulp in there. I think I said last time, I have a sweet tooth, so I kind of like the sweeter drink a little bit. All right, so then I start with that. A couple of dashes of old-fashioned bitters. All right. A 1/4 ounce of this Luxardo maraschino liqueur. Adds to the cherry, the sweet, and it's about a 1/4, right? Yeah, sure.
Close enough.
Yep. Okay, 1/4 ounce of that. All right. Where am I here? 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. All right. And I even go with a bar spoon of the juice, just to get a little more cherry in there.
You weren't lying. You do have a sweet tooth,
Well, I like the
man.
cherry. I like the cherry. Yeah. So, all right. So give it a little stir. Oh, I need to add the bourbon.
That's probably the most
rye, right? Yeah.
important part.
2 ounces of the rye. Yeah. Without that, we got a problem. All right. You got that ice ready here in a second?
Oh, yep. Falling down on my job.
All right. Give that a stir now. A little mix. Okay.
Borrow the spoon so I don't make a splash.
And then, your standard orange peel.
Let me grab this. My mouth is watering already.
Yeah, if you don't like sweet, you may not like this one a whole lot. This is not expressing very. Oh, there you go. That's a little bit there. All right, there. And there you go. Not the fanciest of garnish, but it'll do for these purposes. So
it looks delicious.
That's the catcher in the rye right there. And then the good news after that, you got the whiskey-soaked cherries there at the end, which are fantastic. So,
cheers.
Yeah, give it a shot. How much you think?
Oh, that's really good. There's a lot of cherry in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing, or?
No, it's a very good thing. If you like cherries, and
I do like cherry.
It's not overly sweet. Like, it's a little more sweet than like a regular.
I can make it sweeter, and I've made them sweeter, but for this I didn't, obviously.
Yeah, but that's really good. It's syrupy, and and I'm really glad we went with a higher proof bourbon.
Yeah.
To go with that. So
yeah, that was a good call.
So I definitely recommend that drink. Good deal. Well, I wanted to talk about some cigars.
Okay.
So I recently found out that that my humidor wasn't keeping its humidity because it didn't have enough cigars in it. So I went ahead and ordered me a whole bunch of cigars. So hopefully it'll have keep the humidity. And I like a bargain. So I bought a bunch of knockoff cigars that are comparative to other brands. So Cigars International. There's one not too far from us, but they have a lot of really good deals online. They have a coffee knockoff that's supposed to be kind of sort of, like the infused cigars. You like the infused cigars.
I do.
I like infused cigars.
I like coffee. I like bargains as well.
So leads off into the sweet tooth. So this is the knockoff. It doesn't have a band on it. It doesn't have a label, but I know it's a knockoff because I put the tag in my humidor, so I knew what it was. So here's one for you.
Thank you.
And one for me. So we're going to try these out just to kind of see if, see how they taste. Right here.
Like you said, for science, right?
Exactly. Anything for science.
Doing our part. Ooh, smells sweet.
You can definitely smell it. It smells a lot. I really like
it smells like cake.
It does. Doesn't it? Yeah, you get like a chocolatey, chocolatey smell.
I like it already.
Yeah, I really like the Tatianas, the chocolate ones. I ordered some of those a while back, and I'm almost out of them. But this has a very similar smell.
That is like even the non-knockoff infused cigars don't have this
smell,
strong scent. Yeah.
Well, these are fresh. I don't know how long they've been sitting in the warehouse, but I just got them a couple of days ago.
And
you're out.
My torch. There we go.
Unscripted. It's not bad.
It's not. What's weird is they smell sweeter than they taste or smoke.
Yeah, they don't have a very strong taste.
They don't. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but well, maybe it's a bad thing. You want to taste your cigar.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, I can get a hint.
It's very faint
of this. Yeah, it's very faint. So
the smell is a lot stronger than the actual smoke.
Yeah. Still got a decent flavor to it, though. Even for a cigar in general, it's not a bad flavor.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know if
it's a
I would.
knockoff for a reason.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
This is a knockoff, and definitely would prefer, um, a, more like
A non-knockoff.
the Tabak, or
Mhm.
the
Java
Tatiana, the
or the
Java.
Java. Uh-huh.
But this would do, for a bargain. So yeah, if
Sure.
you're looking for a decent cigar, at a decent price, definitely
Yeah,
recommend
it's not
this.
hateful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not one that I would brag about, but definitely smokable. So
And if you
yeah.
have a bunch of guys over, and these are the ones you hand out, right?
Now whoever comes over will be like, hey, wait a minute, are these the good cigars or the bad cigars? Well, I'll never tell you.
They're the free cigars.
They're
That's all
the
I got to say.
they're the free cigars,
Yes.
exactly. So,
Yes.
well, good deal. Well, I really, the bourbon was really good discussion today on, what it takes to be a man, how Scripture lays it out. Um, the drink is really good. Cigar, about middle of the road.
Yeah. But
So
it'll do. Serviceable.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now we know. I got a couple other ones, so maybe in the future I've got some knockoff Cahibas, and I ordered a Partagas. So maybe, in the future we'll try some of those and see how they
Okay.
compare. We
Okay.
know the infused, they smell good, but not really living up to what they should taste like.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today. Really hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and on YouTube. And if you have an issue, please reach out. We can get you to the right person, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.